Hey, welcome back to the Backyard Professor Chess videos. I'm not saying that to you guys, I'm saying that to me. I feel like I've been gone for a month, man. Hey, let's do some more chess videos. First, I need to read a partial selection out of Jeremy Silman's Reassess Your Chess 4th edition. I personally have finally got it to click, and I'm excited to show you what I've discovered. In chess, it's easy to get a bit overwhelmed by all the ABCs that are tossed at the poor student. In particular, memorization-based materials is often extremely daunting, but shockingly unrewarding. Isn't that the truth? The most prized lessons in chess are those that train the mind to see things in a completely new way, while also planting the seeds for proper mental habits. Okay? Here we'll look at what he calls target consciousness. One of the game's most overlooked, yet critically important concepts. I can testify to that. I try very hard to instill a deep understanding and appreciation of target consciousness in all my students, whether they're rated from 1200 to 2200, it doesn't matter. This term helps ram home a form of mental training where the player, in an almost shark-like manner, learns to instantly recognize all potential targets and, once he finds one, to leap on it like a shark rushes to blood. That's on page 225, in case you were wondering. I have discovered a couple of concepts that interrelate like a zipper. One side and then the other, and you zip them together, and they have truly improved my chess game. And I'm going to show you several sample of my training games that I play with Aleken, the name I call my chess app. I will be making moves, and I'll make several moves, and I'm playing it on a much higher rating than I could ever possibly beat. This game, I believe, was 1800. And as I get in a little bit of trouble, I try to work my way through it, and then I get zapped with a real bad, I either make a blunder, or I lose a piece, or I just have a poor position. So I back it up 5 or 6 moves, and I ask Aleken, what would you do? Here's what I did. Why didn't this work out? And then I'll see what he wants to play. And I go back and forth and back and forth. This is helping me discover the weaknesses in my thinking, and it's also helping me to learn to see what a strong move is as opposed to what I did. And then I combine Aleken's moves and my moves in games, playing against the chess app at this high rating. And I discovered something the other day that I am so excited to show you guys. I'm just about peeing my pants. I'm serious. This is huge. And I will emphasize it. I will point it out. I am playing the white. Aleken is playing the black. I will point it out time and again to emphasize it on purpose, so please forgive me. I promise you, I am not trying to talk down to you as if I am the master of all, and you poor lowly rated minions hardly deserve my attention. No, I promise, that is not it. This is such a real breakthrough in my thinking that I really want to show it to you. I have several games where I've been doing an experiment, and so far it's 100% right, based on my hunch, based on this idea that Silman introduces called target consciousness. Now, I read his chapter a few years back. I am going to reread that chapter because I have discovered target consciousness, but also the concept that it goes with. And here is the game that really showed me, wow, this concept works. This is now a pillar of my chess, exactly on the same level as rooks belong on open files and use those files. I have now discovered a second critical pillar in my chess improvement. So I'm going to share it with you guys. So here we go. I open with the queen pawn opening, and he replies in kind. And I said, well, let's do the queen gambit then. So I do the queen gambit, and he responds with c6. So I brought out my knight, and he brought out his knight to f6. And then what I did was I continued. I have played this enough. Now this is probably not the orthodox way to do this, you know. But I was really leery. In the queen gambit, when they can get this move here, it is a power move. If they do this and then do this, man, it is tough. I get blown away on the queen side when I let that kind of pawn development occur. And so rather than see him do this, it's real interesting. This will happen on the levels between 1800 to 2000, but in the upper levels it doesn't happen as often. That's kind of interesting to know. And so to prevent that move that beats up my queen side, I went ahead and did this. And I know it's unorthodox. It's probably not the best way to play this, but it's my training game, and so I'm learning how to experience the ins and outs of this stuff. So he takes my pawn, which I half expected. And I put out my knight. Right? So we're doing good. And he brings out... No, he did not. He put his bishop here. I'm playing this on my app. I'm playing through it on my app. I saved the game, so I'm referring to my app. And he brought his bishop out to here. So we're developing along pretty good. And this is the classical chess bump. Support your central pawn and open your chance to recapture your pawn if you so desire. It's a pretty decent opening as far as that goes. It's a good way to do it. He bumps up his pawn, giving his bishop support, and I went ahead and took this pawn. Target consciousness. The idea is see where the targets are and attack them. In relation to target consciousness, there's another concept that I will introduce you to a little later in the game that I personally have just... I probably have it in my subconscious. I'm sure Silman talks about this in his chapter on target consciousness. I don't know that. I suspect he does, but I've discovered it, rediscovered it on my own without remembering whether Silman talks about it or not. And what I discovered was so important. I've been experimenting with several chess games, and so far it's at 100%. The two concepts go together. This is important. So he's pinned my knight to the king. I can't come up here. I wouldn't go up there anyway. I can't come up here. I wouldn't go there anyway. I could go to here, but I wouldn't anyway because I'm just giving my knight to the bishop. So for now, that move, it's typical. You'll see it. But in this particular position, it doesn't do a lot. It is, however, developing a piece, giving him a chance to castle and connect his rooks. So it's not a waste of a time, but it doesn't do a lot at this point, thank goodness, because it's pretty early in the game and I want a chance to play this game strongly with him. Through time of practicing the Queen Gambit, this was accepted. He accepted the Gambit pawn. I have discovered that I personally play stronger when I bump my bishop up here in case he takes the knight. If he takes the knight with his bishop and I retake with the pawn, I don't have as strong a game. Now, I've seen in the upper levels, the way up there, 22, 2300 areas, that this doesn't bother them as much. They don't mind retaking with the pawn. But then that's a vastly different chess realm than the one I'm playing in right now, and it will be for several years. So, for now, I understand. If there's some who say I'm too paranoid or whatever, I understand. It's okay. I'm an amateur at this point. I'm just a beginner, barely spreading my wings, you know. I can't even fly yet. But I am more comfortable at this point with this opening of pushing that bishop. That way I do not goof up my queenside pawns. It also gives me a very important open file on the C file instead of the B file. And I know that's a lot of technical, it's technical, I understand that, but I find I play a better game when I do it this way. That's just the way it is. He castles. Very appropriately, I believe it was here that I castled. Yes, I castled also. Definitely, we got a castle, keep it going early. And now he pulls his knight out. You notice how the development on both sides is becoming very complete. This is the beauty of training with the chess app. Look, I don't have any real good chess masters in my area to train me, and I also don't have the money. This app was a free download, Chess 2018. I've been meaning to tell you that. It's just a free download from the App Play Store, and so I use it as my trainer because it's cheap and it's easy, right? And it does go to a very high level, so eventually I could improve, right? This is the theory. This is the theory. It's all theory at this point. Here, I sorely wanted to put my rook here and press my pawn. And I don't remember exactly all the different moves that I made as compared to the ones I accepted from my teacher, Alekin. I wanted to do this and then push the pawn because there's a target, right? But we ended up doing this. I played through a few things, and this actually ended up being the better move, so I went ahead and went with this. Remember, in a training game, it's not about winning or losing. That is irrelevant. I am training myself to see what various options I have in the opening, the middle game, and the end game, and the various nuances, how to learn how to coordinate my pieces in both defense and attack, right? So I will play through 18 moves sometimes to see what goes on. Then I will take it back and I will play different moves 18, 20 times, see if I can have any effect. And the effect I have is every time I do that, I lose. Playing and asking Alekin, what would you do here? I like this, but I run into trouble here, so I tried to change that out, but I ran into trouble again. What would you do? And then he shows me something like this. I go, oh, okay. And then from this point, I will try to play through as much as I can until I get into trouble. Then I will come back to this point and ask him again. Oh, okay, I try to see what moves he would play, and I'm getting better at that. In a position, I ask, okay, for instance, let's see. Let's see what he did. I knew he would do this. I've played this enough with him that I knew he was going to put his queen on the B file also. Bam. Yeah. Yeah. Now, the question is, what next move would Alekin do? And I try to figure that out before I ask him. I want to try to think a little bit more like him and better, right? So I'm asking myself, well, I've looked at the position, material is even, blah, blah, blah. The center is fairly well contested, well defended and owned by him, well defended and owned by me. In other words, that's the battleground, the center. Incidentally, in Chess Club this last week, I went 5-0. I went undefeated for the first time. So I'm really excited. My chess is picking up. And I did run into a student who did not think he understood, but he did not think the center was the most important part of this board. And that positively shocked me. That shocked me. He goes, well, no, I think the edges are really quite important. And so it was a simple illustration. I took a knight and put it out there in the center. And I said, count how many squares the knight influences. And then I put the knight on the edge. I said, now count how many squares the knight influences. And that's all it took. I did the same thing with the bishop and the same thing with the queen. And the same thing with the pawn. This pawn influences 2 squares. This pawn only influences 1. There's your evidence. I mean, it's just the logic of the way this thing is put together. So there are people still out there playing chess who do not even have the basics down pat. This is critically important. I'm not ridiculing him. I'm trying to help him understand, whoa, you've got things wrong here. The fundamental is the center, right? So anyway, enough preaching. I don't mean to preach. Well, again, I was wanting to push the rook and push the pawn. Yes, he's got it hit twice, but I've got it guarded twice with the rook. I could always drop my queen down and have it 3 times. Yeah? I wanted to do that so bad I couldn't see straight, and instead, Alekin did something different. Notice how, when the queen came up, he was target conscious of that bishop. In response, he attacked the target. In response, our opponent did this. So while I'm wanting to Mickey Mouse around here, he simply hit the target right now. Not move a piece, and then attack the target. No, he hit the target. Target consciousness. I'll be saying that a lot this time because this is really an important concept. He took the knight, which I was half expecting because that's usually one of the reasons why the bishop comes out is to get rid of one of the knights. Yeah. So I took the bishop. Now, at this point, I have the bishop pair. And oh man, do they play a role in this game. Very interesting how this works out. So I took his bishop, and lo and behold, he took the queen. And I was somewhat surprised that taking the bishop was going to get that response. I thought the queen would bump down, but that's the fun of chess. So I had the queen covered, so I retook the queen. Now, there are people... I played a game in chess club where I swapped the queens pretty early, and it completely blew the poor kid out. He couldn't even play without his queen. He had no idea what to do with his bishops, how to coordinate his pawns and his knights, where to put his rooks. He had no idea. It was a very simple, easy game because once I swapped queens, his game fell apart. Don't be that way. Learn to relish playing without your queens. What this will do, and my advice is practice without queens a lot. Because what you'll find yourself forced to do is learn how to play the minor pieces and the rooks together without the backup of the queen. If you know how bishops can be made better, and you do so and your opponent doesn't, you'll play better chess. If you know how to make your knights better and do so, you will play better chess than your opponent. If you know your rooks belong on open files and you use them, you will play better chess than your opponent. So look forward to the time when you can play without your queens. Now, we did the exchange, and of course, over here, he's not going to let me take that bishop. Not for free like that, no. No, not happening. And I suspected he wouldn't. So, bishop b4. And you ask, how does that make any sense? How does that make any sense when you have an undeveloped rook? This rook is really not in a file as such, but you do have a file here, a partial open file. I call them open files when I don't have my own pawn on it, but apparently that's really grossly wrong. But why not fully develop your army yet? Okay, this is, I have been screaming, develop every piece in your army. Use every piece in your army is probably a better way to say this now, because at this point he really is serving a purpose staying there. I do use him, but not yet, right? Don't leave any piece unused would be a more nuanced, a deeper, more subtle, higher chess concept, whatever you want to say about it. But look what he does. Boom. Target conscious. Yeah? Very important to see this. He moves his rook to here, so he's out of the way. So now you're asking, well, okay, I could bump here. That's target conscious. That is target conscious. However, it is moving one of the 3 pawns in front of your castled king. There are always going to be targets to hit. I'll introduce the second concept here. This isn't where I was going to, but I can here. I can see how it can be valuable here. This weakens this, the square, the G3 square, by pushing the pawn, right? Now instead of 2 pawns covering it, there's only 1. Yes, it hits a target. The second concept that you want to, and it takes practice, but put together with the idea of target conscious, is improving your position. I mean, there's going to be a lot of targets, but there's going to be some targets that you don't want to target simply because it weakens your position. It doesn't help your position. So in conjunction with target consciousness, you want position improvement. And yeah, a lot of that comes through intuition, through playing a lot of chess, practicing a lot of chess, but there's shortcuts. There's ways to grasp this. This doesn't weaken your king disastrously, but there's a better target, right? Target consciousness. Bam! Not only hitting the rook again, but possibly taking out the guardian of these pawns and wrecking his pawn structure, except you know that won't happen because he's backing up his knight with his knight, but that's a target. But so is that. So he brings the rook here, and look at that beautiful square that the bishop now possesses. He cannot be chased away from that square by a pawn. He can only be exchanged at that square. So the effect of being target conscious has paid off. Now watch the role that bishop plays in this game. It really does pay off. Now watch this. Boom. What? He's being target conscious, but that's not quite the right way to do it. Not with the pawn in front of your king and jumping out so far. That completely weakens all 3 squares around his king instantly, and he can never get that back. So this is a clue for me. Aha! That's not bad. Now, granted, I don't have anywhere else to go except to here. I understand that. And sure enough, as Sugar Sweet, he's going to take the knight with the bishop because it does disrupt my kingside pawns. I have to respond, right? So that makes sense. However, it's not a total disaster, but it is an effect. And then he came here, hitting my central pawn. I have decent pawn structure. It does give decent central support, right? Yeah, my bishop's hanging at this point, but he's not attacked, and he is actually crimping, not cramping, but crimping black and where he can go. So it's okay at this point to leave that bishop. I've got a great diagonal coming right at the king, touching this pawn, which is going to be possibly useful later on in the game, right? So, with this principle of target consciousness, you say, okay, look, I've got a target here if I take the pawn. True, but the problem is, I want to make sure I've still got this set up right. Yeah, here's the problem with thinking. The idea of thinking target conscious is correct, but you have to learn how to implement it. And I'm not speaking as an expert by any means, I promise. However, there's wrong ways to do that. If he did that, he's got this knight right here. Yeah? And you say, well, then just take the knight. Yeah. But then the problem is, he's got his rook. And that position isn't bad for black. So you gotta, and I'm lousy at this, I'm practicing it, but you have to try to look ahead, to try to visualize what the position will be if you attack a certain target a certain way. And that really doesn't do a lot for you position-wise. I'm saying position-wise. So no, we don't want to attack it in that manner. Let me make sure I get this put back together right. All right, so he has come to here, but there is a target. Let me double check real quick. Yeah, he takes the pawn. He takes the pawn, definitely. Now, here's a cool little lesson. Rather than retake with the pawn and open up a complete file to him and leave your double pawns, see what you do is you create one pawn island, another pawn island, another pawn island, and another pawn island. That really beats up your pawn structure. Yeah, you've gotten a little damage with these double pawns, unless you can advance them. That's tough to do sometimes. If you respond by taking it with the pawn, that's, in an endgame, that's going to hurt you. And we have to start learning how to think about endgames. That's why I want to do endgame studies. It doesn't look like the endgame studies are nearly as enthusiastically enjoyed. I mean, they are enthusiastically enjoyed, but a lot of people don't want to watch those. They want to see the full games and on and on. And I understand, but I'm not going to stop doing endgame studies. You know, they are critically important to study and learn. So rather than take it with the pawn, what's wrong with putting the rook right there? Target consciousness. Right? Because did I miss a play? Oh, when he moved his pawn. Sorry, I missed a move. That's so typical. That is so typical. I missed a move. When he pushed his pawn here, then I put the rook there. That's what happened. And then he took the pawn. And what I was saying, all that deep, hairy analysis, shot to heck. Then I was saying, instead of returning with the pawn capture and giving him the file and blocking off your own, it would be better to take it with the rook. And that gives you the open file, right? And a target. Yes, he's guarded. That's irrelevant. In some cases, that's a target, right? Okay, so now I've got this right, I think, I hope. I'm trying to make this useful for us. Yeah, he took, then I took with the rook, and then he brought the knight. Yeah, now he brings the knight up. Now it's a central posted knight. I told you to watch this bishop who was target conscious against this rook and put that rook there, which basically gave him a partial open file. But now when the knight decides to come out, the bishop can swap the knight. Yeah? That's what happens. Target conscious. And of course, the rook takes the bishop. Yes, absolutely so. Now, with that in mind, we're approaching the end game, aren't we? We have 2 rooks and a knight, and we have 2 rooks and a bishop. We have pawns on both sides. So if we understand that in the end game, if there are pawns on both sides of the board, the bishop should be better. It's up to us to make it better, but the bishop is a better piece to have. Then we recognize now, okay, we are entering the end game. We're at the end of the middle, entering an end game. Yeah. Now, with that in mind, bam, target consciousness. Hit the rook, without question. And what it does is it's moving your double pawns forward, which is improving your position. The two are connected. I just want to make sure we understand that. Now, he took it with his pawn, of course. Now, we both have the open file with our kings, yes? At this point, the double pawns are gone, so a potential weakness, had he been able to put his knight in front of those double pawns, then that would have been a weakness. But now that they're gone, the weakness has disappeared. That was the value of thinking target consciousness, pushing that pawn even though you knew he was going to take that pawn. Now, the next move makes perfect sense if you're thinking target consciousness. And it's not this one, even though it hits a target. Yeah? Because look, that rook is on a file. He can move out of the way, and his other buddy can come here, and then he's got a horrendous attack possibility. Yeah? So, what is the way to be target conscious in this particular position is take it with the rook. And your target is the unprotected knight. Target consciousness. And you have improved your position. Yeah? Very cool. He brings his rook to here, check. He makes an intermediate move here before he protects the knight or moves the knight out of danger. So I'm forced to put my king here. And in this endgame, I don't want to put the king in the corner. No. I want him over here. I have, looking ahead, I believe I'm going to last into the endgame. I have pawns on both sides. He has pawns on both sides. I'm going to need the king to be out here, not hidden back here, right? So moving that way out of check. Does that make sense? It will later. So he comes to here, check, and I moved, and then he brought his king up, absolutely, guarding the knight. Now notice, target consciousness, and he is responding. I've been doing target consciousness against the rook, and he's been responding. In fact, I don't stop yet. If I remember right, and I do, bam, pawn hitting the rook. Target consciousness. And it is improving my position. I understand this is an isolated pawn, and there might be some people who scoff and say, oh yeah, dude, your position's already shot. You've got an isolated pawn. You can't use that. Oh yes, you can. This is putting the pawn closer to the queening square. It is also gaining more space. It is also hitting a target, and now he has to respond. Notice in the long run what happens. I'm going to kind of give the game away, but not much. My entire group of pieces are going to start moving forward. Because there are so many pawns, my pawns are improving their position as they sneak forward, as they hit targets, and his pawns stay back. That's improving my position for the end game, yeah? So this is an improvement, right? Sure, it's small, but it's by small accumulated advantages that you can win a game, right? So he says, all right, that's enough of that noise, you little pipsqueak. And then, of course, if I push the pawn, he'll just take it, right, with the knight. So that's not the way to attack a target. Yes, that's a target, but there's no point in giving him the pawn. See what I mean? Does that make sense? But there is a target. There really is. Bring the bishop. Target consciousness toward the king. Hit that rook again and consolidate my position one move at a time. I'm improving the position. He is responding and running away from danger. He has no plan. He has no initiative. I have. Very nice. And so this forces him to literally the only square that he can move to that's useful is here. Now you ask, wait a minute, aren't rooks in an endgame powerful? Yeah, truly they really are. But that can be used against you if you're not real good with your rooks. Hopefully we'll get good with our rooks. But the idea here with exchanging the rooks is this. We want to trade down, which is improving our position. Ironically enough, target consciousness is helping us to trade down for this reason, and I've already mentioned it. You want to keep it in mind. We still each have a rook, but I have the bishop, he has the knight. I have two groups of pawns on both sides, and I have two groups of pawns on both sides to protect. The bishop is the better piece for this board position. And that's why you want to learn how to read the board position, right? Yes? Say yes. Oh, yeah, we switched. Come on, get with it. Okay, and then king up, king going toward the center. King is a fighting piece, and he pushes his pawn forward, giving his knight a good support pawn. Not bad. Not bad. That's good. However, target consciousness. Target consciousness. Improving my position, moving my pawns forward, hitting the target. Improve the position and target consciousness go together. Yeah? This is fantastic. He comes to here. Check. Target conscious. Use all your pieces. You notice that rook hasn't played any role in the game until the very end game, and then it's absolutely overwhelmingly powerful. So it's not, this idea of developing all your pieces is really critical, but using all your pieces in their appropriate time is just as critical, right? So I have the initiative. I'm keeping him bouncing around. He is not able to advance his material in any meaningful way, and I am able to advance my material in a meaningful way. in an end game, and we are in an end game, the one who gets his pawns on that last rank wins, right? That's the goal now. That's our target, big target, any pawn on that rank. But you're not going to do it all at once, so you have to do it in small increments. Yeah, that makes sense. So check to the king. The king, of course, moves out of check. Boom. Now, once again, I have a great opportunity to improve my position here and be target conscious. Hit a target while improving my position. What's wrong with that? Hit the target. It's blocking my passed pawn. Hit the target. Only the king is protecting that. If that king can be chased away, I can nab me a knight. But at this point, I can get a target, right? Very nice. Watch. He reacts to my target conscious threat. What's that tell you? That tells you I have the initiative. I am doing what I want to do, and he is not. I am improving my position, keeping it consolidated, moving it forward. He is reacting to every one of my target conscious threats. That's critical to see. This is so wonderful how this happens. Once again, target conscious. Hit the knight. Move forward closer to the goal here. Yeah, that is important to see. He bumps down to here. I say not a problem. Target conscious. Target. Attack the target. Also bringing in my king closer to this pawn majority. Notice we're in an end game. He has the pawn majority. I'm outnumbered. Oh, and then the heater again. It's been too long since I've done a chess video. I'm so sorry. He's got the pawn majority. I have the small pawns, the 2 against the 3, so my king has to be on this side. Hang on, I'll go shut the heater off. It's 9 degrees outside, just so you know. It's dang cold. Sheesh. So the essential idea I want to get across is approach the knight as it checks you. Be target conscious, right? That's the idea. Now the knight bumps down to here, and it's time, since the knight is not threatening me, to improve my position. I am moving forward, which in an endgame with the pawns, and I still have a rook and a bishop, is improving your position. Understand that. Vitally important to understand. Now the rook comes over here to go check to my poor harmless king, and I'm moving this away. Here I have the majority of pawns. Granted, those two are locked and they're isolated together on a single column. I have the majority of pawns here. His king is here by my majority. My rook's covered. So my king wants to get over here. He's got a majority of 3 to 2. My king can be very useful on this side. Yeah? So that's where I want my king to be without question. So why not move him over one more? Improve my position. Yes? Notice I have this target still. He did an intermediate move to check my king. Now he must come back and in defensive mode protect that pawn. Yes? Target consciousness. Improve my position while attacking a target. Boom. Hit the target, moving forward to break up this majority. A king has trouble dealing with 3 pawns on one side. If I can narrow this down to 2 pawns, I've got it. You see the strategy here. You see the idea, right? So he bumps his knight to here. I bump my bishop down. Why does that move make sense? If you're in this position and you're wondering it's the end game, they're scattered all over, I don't know what to do. I suppose I could go check to the king. You know, that's an option. I've got it covered with the rook and I've got it covered with the pawn. The bishop is target conscious. And you say, yeah, but the rook's covering it. That's correct. The rook is covering it. Let me explain what is happening here. The king bumps up to here, and now I take it with the rook, not the bishop. And you ask, what the? Because with the bishop, he will not trade down. With a piece of equal value, he will trade down. And he does. And now the target consciousness pays off. I got a pawn, an important pawn, giving me a pass pawn. It was blocking my pass pawn. And I got the rook and pawn for just a rook. What's the value of this? The value of this is I now have a bishop with pawns on both sides of the board. All he has is a knight. In end games, bishops, if your pawns are on both sides of the board, are better. We have to make them better, but watch how this works out. It's fantastic. The knight comes bumping back, check to my king, right? Or no? What the heck? How did my king end up there? Oh, I made him move somewhere where I shouldn't have. Sorry, my king was here. Yeah, it's not going to spoil this end game. Just somehow I saw that. I moved it wrong. Boy, I'm trying to do this electronically so I have my position set up so I can do variations. It's not working very well. I won't do it again this way. Anyway, he brings his knight up. Now, he's not attacking me, so at this point, I say improve my position a little bit more. I am moving forward. I now have the bishop. He's only got the knight. I can get him. He comes to check to my king. Target consciousness. When he's attacking me with his knight, I approach the knight. Attack the target. He comes to check. Whoops. He comes to check. I have target consciousness. I approach the target, but look what is happening. Observe this. As I approach that knight, I get closer to these guys. My king is staying somewhat central, but it's moving toward the critical area that I need to control. And he can't stop me. All he's doing is wandering around giving me useless checks. I am improving my position with my pawn and my king. Yeah? Notice that. That is really important to see. The knight comes to here. Now, he didn't attack me here. So I can bring my bishop back into here, pointing onto this side as well. I can improve the position of my bishop. Yes? That makes sense? Finally, he attacks my pawn. Yes. Yes and yes. I like that because I will take that pawn. In end games, when they attack a pawn or when you attack the pawn, very seldom do I see that happen. Really, truly. And I know it's only one pawn. No, You don't want three, no, you don't want three pawns. Exchange. It's okay to exchange that pawn. I promise. And then he will exchange the pawn. So now I'm down to 2, and it's manageable, and my king is in the area. This is sensational news. Because by being target conscious over here and exchanging the rooks, I now have a passed pawn. Push it. Watch how this passed pawn dominates this endgame. It is incredible. The power of a passed pawn. Incredible. My target consciousness is right there. A square can be a target that you need to go after. A piece, a pawn, a square. Absolute. Silman's big on that in his target consciousness chapters. He does mention that. Definitely. Absolutely. The pawn comes down to here, check to the king. Do I go here? No, that addresses nothing. It gives him a free move. No, I do not go there, because then he can start making progress while hitting a target. Does that make sense? You don't want to give him targets. You want him to give you the targets. That makes you target conscious, right? So he attacked me. Address him. Attack that target. Now he moved to here. He is not attacking me, so improve my position. And how do I do that? Simple. Push the pawn to glory. Now that pawn is dangerous, right? You can see that. You've got to see that. Black sure does. Black starts heading toward the pawn. Now, I've got this king preoccupied over here, right? This knight is wandering around giving me aimless checks, and I have been able to advance a pawn and give myself a more manageable majority on this side. Therefore, I am improving my position. Does that make sense? Yeah? Really, truly. Attack the target. It's time for me to get up to here. But first I attack that target so that he cannot advance. I hold the initiative. I make him react to me. I don't want him pushing his pawns. I want to push the pawns. Therefore, attack the target. He comes up to here. He is not threatening me. He is not attacking me. So I improve my position by target consciousness. Hit the pawn. With a piece, no less. Yeah? The knight bumps up to here. He's getting target conscious. I don't want him to take anything if I can at all help it. So what do? I get target conscious. I say, oh, you're going to attack me? I'm going to attack you back. Target consciousness and improving my position. I can't overemphasize this. Those two go together. In every game I played this last week, those two concepts are married. Yes, look how much closer and more dangerous my pawns are than his, because I have been target conscious. Understand that, and it will transform your chess game. Well, now he's way back to here. He does protect the pawn that I'm hitting, yes? Right? So, improve my position, centralizing my bishop, giving me maximum power, where? On my side, protecting my pawns, and on his side, hitting his. What is his knight doing? Well, he is guarding both sides, but only because those pawns are so close together. But he's not attacking any of my stuff. He can't. But I can attack him. The superiority of the bishop in an endgame with pawns on both sides is being seen here. Very, very beautifully. The king comes over to here, of course, because the pawns are too strong. However, watch. Target consciousness and improving my position my bishop can protect my pawn that can actually put the king in check. If I bump up, moving forward, that pawn will never improve now. Mine is completely dominating with his buddy who can do a breakthrough, and the threat is this guy, the other passed pawn. My position is dangerous to black because I've been doing two things: target consciousness and improving my position, step by step. Yeah! I love how this works. Now he starts advancing his pawn. That's what I do not want. So I put a stop to it. Target consciousness. I'm not going to wait for him to come down here. I'm going to go for the target, right? It's manageable with 2. With 3, it would be a nightmare. With 2, it's doable. Yeah? That's a good rule of thumb to be in mind of. Here comes the knight again. What do you do with the knight? Target consciousness. No, I couldn't hit that pawn. That one I can take, however. I have this pawn to stop him. I've got a target. Target consciousness, and my king position is absolutely beautiful. It's as powerful as it will be in this endgame. And where's his king? Nowhere. See the difference here? That's important to see. So the knight comes to here, target consciousness, hitting my bishop. It's about all he can do. So improve my position. I want to stay on this diagonal because I've got a pawn here. I want to bump in. There's my target. Yeah, well, the king's the target too as far as that goes. Yes. He bumps the knight back to here, hitting a target. And now I go check. Absolutely check. Hit the target completely. The king is forced into the corner to stop the pawn. Yeah? And now the knight is helpless to stop me from queening. The king can stop me there, but because I've been target consciousness improving my position this whole game, I have 2 of these guys right there, and one of them's getting in. Look at the beautiful knight fork he has, however, on the king check and on the bishop. Yeah? So I take the target consciousness. There's no longer a majority here. Very nice in an endgame to have gotten rid of that majority, right? Yeah. And of course he takes the bishop, except he doesn't. He can't. You go, what? Look, if he takes the bishop, I'm in for a queen. Right? He's done. It's there. He can't move here. He can only go here. If he goes there, I queen, and he takes, and then I queen. You see that? The power of target consciousness and improving your position is so beautifully illustrated here, it's breathtaking. Because he is virtually forced to take the pawn, not the bishop. Otherwise, I win. So I got my knight. And he pushes his pawn. And you ask, why didn't he take your bishop? I don't know, but it wouldn't make any difference. It really wouldn't make a difference. If he had taken my bishop, I would have gone to here. And I'm in. I've got a queen. By the same principle. If he takes the pawn, then I queen. And if he comes to here, then I queen, and he takes it, and then I queen and check him. You see how that works? So I got my queen because of target consciousness and improving my position at the same time. But that's not what happened. Instead, I took his pawn. Yeah? Yeah, I took his pawn. Take his pawn, man. And of course, now he takes my pawn. And you say, well, that's not a very good position. Sure it is. Because now, target consciousness. Get rid of this little guy here, right? And of course, he bumps up. And of course, I take him. Now look at this position. If something happens and I don't get in here, I've got this guy escorted by the king. Yes? He did move his king up, and I moved my bishop over. Yeah? I want to show you this. The game is over. There's no question about that. He moved his king over. This is a nifty little position to have, your bishop and pawn, because now that king can't touch either one of them. Now all I have to do is march my pawn up. But when I march my pawn up, understand, he went to here. Understand, I want my king on this side of that pawn. And I know it's only against one king. Practice good habits now, and they'll serve you well in the future. Now I go to here. I believe he came to there, and I started pushing my pawn. And no, I didn't. No, I didn't. I did not push my pawn. How did I do this? Well, how did I do this? I pushed my pawn to there. He moved his king to there. I said that. Then I pushed my pawn. Okay, hang on just one quick sec. I want to make sure I get this right. I put my king up to here when my pawn was back here, and his king was right here. He had moved his king to here. Oh, and then he moved back. That's what he did. He moved back. He made a weak move. He should have went that way. He should have went that way. Because what I did then was I pushed my pawn. Then he brought his king out. Then I went here, and I believe he went to here. And then I pushed my pawn. He came back to here. I pushed my king, and then he went back to there. See, that is where he gave me the game, because now I go to here. And now I've got the pawn in. But when you have a pawn by itself, you have to escort it with your king. Always get into that habit, right? Make sure your king guards your pawn all the way in. Well, as the game worked out, of course, I got 2 queens and a bishop. So anyway, there's your chess video. The thing I'm so excited about is those twin concepts. Improving your position while hitting targets. There's going to be a lot of different targets. And if you just randomly, willy-nilly start attacking targets, you could actually damage your own position. If the target helps you maneuver improving your position, that's a good target. Go get it. So I've got a lot of illustrative games I'll show with this concept. And I will continue the endgame studies. It doesn't matter that 2,000 people a week are not looking at them. I don't care. They're very valuable to me, and those of you who are watching them, I will continue them, I promise. In the meantime, I will also begin exploring more Grandmaster games with this idea in mind of target consciousness. I'll share some of this Jeremy Silman material because it's so valuable. And I'll share some games from the Grandmasters also. So I've got a lot of chess to catch up on and do. I'm kind of doing a little bit of everything, but hey, that's how we get better at chess. So anyway, thank you for all your support and help. I appreciate all your enthusiasm and your friendship and your love. I love all you guys. You are spectacular, awesome audience. I really appreciate being able to do these for you because it's helping me. And it's helping you. So, happy chess exercising, be good, do well, have fun, work hard, but not too hard like I had to this week. Oh my gosh, I had a miserable week. Let me show you a quick, I'm going to show you, come on, I've got to get through this stupid passcode. I'm going to show you a picture of me. That was me after I was done snow blowing the other day. It was horrendous, man. So I had a lot of fun, but man, it was a lot of work. And it was cold. Down to 0, man. It sucked. Anyway, have fun, be good, do well. Thanks, and stay tuned. There are more videos on the way.